Hello, my name is Sylvie. I am going to teach you in this video how to make elderberry syrup extract, all the way from the beginning stages, identifying the plant, harvesting, all the way to bottling your finished syrup. I'm going to show you a method that I developed that I feel is the most potent way to get the medicine out of the berries. It has a lot of benefits. It lasts a long time in the refrigerator. It tastes really good, so it's good for children and picky adults. And it's a lot lower in sugar than most elderberry syrup recipes that you're going to find. Because I'm using 3 different ways of extracting the berries, you're going to learn a lot about how to make herbal medicine. So this is Sambucus nigra, the blue elder. And you can see it is a shrub. The branches come directly from the ground, so it doesn't have a central trunk. The leaves are compound leaves. They have anywhere from 5 to 10 leaflets, and one of them is terminal, so it's all the way sticking up. And the berries are a beautiful deep blue purple color. They can have a bloom on them. So this one has this kind of white powdery stuff that makes them look really light blue, and it's not harmful at all. This is one of my favorite plants. The entire plant is medicinal. So from the roots, the leaves, the bark, obviously the berries, the flowers. A lot of the different parts are not to be used internally. So if you're going to use anything other than the berries, make sure you do your research because it can be toxic. There's a lot of folklore, superstition around this plant. Elder has had a relationship with humans for, they think, over 15,000 years. And so it's associated with witches, with fairies, with the underworld. I like to ask permission before I harvest of all plants, but especially the elder. There's a lot of superstition around that. And I like to give it thanks. So thank you, elder, for giving me and my family some medicine so that we'll stay well this winter. And so harvesting it is really easy. Just get a paper bag and you're going to cut right above the umbel. And there tends to be one main piece with 2 smaller pieces on each side, 2 clusters. Oops, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to keep harvesting this, and then we're going to put it in the freezer. It's going to really help us to be able to take the berries off of the stems. So I'll see you in the kitchen. So the berries that we collected have been in the freezer for a couple hours. That's really going to help us get the berries off of the stems. And so the first thing I do is I usually just shove the bag around with my hands and try to get as many of them to fall off. And then I dump everything in a bowl. And then just keep doing that, rubbing between my hands. So they just come right off. And then eventually you have to start picking them to get the rest off, just like that. So once all the berries are off of the branches and the twigs, we're going to put them into a glass jar like I just did and start to make our extracts. So we're going to do 3 extracts. The first one is going to be an alcohol extract. This is going to sit for a few weeks, get all the medicine out. And the second one is we're going to squeeze the juice out. So it'll be just a straight extract of the juice. The third one that we're going to do is put it in some water and do a water extract, also called a tea. So the first step with this alcohol, herbalists usually use vodka or Everclear to make tinctures. I'm choosing brandy because we are making a syrup. We want it to taste good. So taste is an important factor here. I'm going to start pouring that in. Okay, so I poured it. I want to make sure that it covers the berries completely. And then this is going to sit for 4 to 6 weeks, ideally. Sometimes people just can't wait that long and do it after 2 or 3 weeks. And you want to make sure it stays out of the direct sunlight and shake it every few days. So that starts the process extracting again. It kind of reactivates it every few days. So just keep that close by so you don't forget about it, and make sure you put the date on there. So once you've had your tincture in the alcohol for several weeks, it's time to strain it out. Like I said, 4 to 6 weeks is ideal, but if you need the medicine before somebody you know is sick, it's okay to use it after 3 weeks. Some herbalists let their herbs tincture for up to 6 months to get the maximum amount of medicine out of them. So what you're going to need to strain is a large bowl, a colander that you're going to place inside it, and a flour sack towel that you line the colander with. So this makes sure that none of the little bits get into your extract that can make it ferment or go bad faster, and it will help us squeeze out as much as we can out of there. So I'm going to pour it in here. Okay, and then take the towel and wrap it up really tight around the berries. Keep turning and squeezing to try to get as much out as I can. You can see a lot more coming out this way. Okay, so you just want to keep squeezing, keep squeezing. It takes some muscle, but eventually you'll see it get smaller and smaller. And then this extract can be used at this point as medicine. So if you needed this right now and didn't have time to go through the other steps, you could start taking this to help you get over a cold. But of course, when you make it into a syrup, it tastes a lot better. So we're gonna do these other steps. So after we've strained all of the alcohol tincture off of the berries, some people throw it away at this point and just keep the brandy tincture. But I think there's so much left medicinally in these berries that I want to make sure I get as much out as I can. So this second step is optional. You don't have to try to get the juice out before making the tea, but some of the constituents in the elderberry are better raw, and so I like to try to get the juice out. So I'm going to use a food mill and just place the berries directly in here. And then just going to crank this to get the juice out. Very important not to grind the seeds, as there's a toxic compound that can cause nausea. Don't use a blender or juicer. Okay, so I have the juice that I was able to get out of the berries. I got a little under a cup, and I'm going to strain it and add it to the tincture. And we don't want to add too much juice. So if you get a whole lot more than a cup at this point, I wouldn't add it all in. The juice is going to make it ferment faster, and so we don't want to, but a cup in here is fine. So I'm going to put that in here and make sure I strain it so I don't get any seeds. Okay. And then we're going to set this aside, and we'll combine this with the tea once we're done. The next step, I have all the berries left over, and I'm going to add the same amount of water as I have tincture juice combination. So it looks like it's about 5 cups. Yep, and that's what I've measured out in here. And so I'm going to simmer this for about half an hour. And this is a good point to add any spices or herbs that you want to add to flavor the syrup. I'm going to add some cinnamon and clove today. Cinnamon, I really like this flavor in the syrup. It also helps circulation and to warm up the body, which is good during the wintertime. So I'm going to add a full 2 tablespoons. And cloves are really strong, and so I don't want to overdo the cloves. So I'm going to add 4 or 5 cloves. So here's 3. And here is 2 more. Okay, and then this is gonna simmer at low heat for 30 minutes and we'll strain it at that point again. Most recipes go right to boiling the berries. I think heat actually destroys a lot of the medicinal compounds, so that's why the first 2 steps we're using raw berries. So once the berries have simmered for half an hour, it's time to strain it yet again. And so I have a fresh flour sack towel on top of my colander. Once again, that's placed in a bowl. Okay, just gonna let this strain out. And we just do the same thing again. And now we should have a nice strong tea that will combine with the alcohol in the next step. Here is the tea that we've strained the berries out. I'm gonna go ahead and I let it cool a little bit because the next step we're gonna add honey. And I like to keep the properties of the raw honey intact, the enzymes and the vitamins. And so we don't want this to be boiling hot when we do this step. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour it into a jar, a measured jar, so I can see how much I have. It looks like I got just a little less than 5 cups. So at this point, I have the same amount of tea as I do the tincture, or a little bit less. And how much honey to add is really up to you. So a lot of times elderberry syrup is made with sugar, lots of sugar to help preserve it. And the honey does add a little preserving quality. But the alcohol is really strong preservative, and so we don't need to use as much honey, which is a really good thing because especially when you're sick, you don't want to be eating a whole bunch of sugar. That just really depresses your immune system. So regular recipes would say to add somewhere like the same amount of tea you would add in honey. I'm not going to do that. I have a little over 4 cups, and I'm going to add about 1.5 cups, so about 1/4 of the finished tea volume in honey. And honey is really messy to measure, so I like to just pour it in. So I'm just watching where I am here. And that is about 1.5 cups. Okay. And then we'll just let this dissolve. Once again, the tea is warm, but not too hot. So my honey is dissolved now, and just a quick recap before we do our last step of mixing together everything we've made. We started by making an alcohol tincture with brandy, and then pressed the juice out with the food mill. So that was the second step. The third was making the water extract, which I have right here, and adding the honey. And then next we're just going to mix everything together. All of these steps can be made with dried berries, and so if you missed the elderberry season, that's fine. You can just order some dried berries online or get them from a local store, and the ratios are a little bit different, but you can go ahead and just do all of these steps the same way. And so here I go. This is where the alchemy happens, our magical potion that we've made here. Okay, And then last step, you're gonna wanna put it into bottles. I have some small ones here. These make really nice gifts in this size. The dosage is pretty small. So because of the extract is so strong, you only have to take really a teaspoon at a time, up to a tablespoon at a time. It is basically a food, and so if you want to take more, you can. It's not like you have to limit yourself, but because it's so strong, a little goes a long way. And so I like to give it in these little bottles. Oopsies. There we go. And then, of course, you're going to want to put a nice pretty label on. I printed these out just with my printer, Avery labels. There you go. This should stay refrigerated and will last at least 2 months in the refrigerator. So if all of those steps seem daunting and you want this medicine for yourself without having to go through all of these steps, I have this syrup available at Nourish Me in Ketchum. So right on Main Street, that health food store carries this, and you can get a bottle for yourself. Thank you so much for watching.